Hey folks, come walk with me. Well, there have been a few videos recently where I've alluded to this idea that we use our technology in a very foolish way. So let's start there. And then we'll start to get into some concepts of what I think would constitute a non-foolish way and why. That may mean that this video doesn't end this topic, and is quite likely the case, as is quite likely the case with most of these Walk With Me videos, that this is a starting point. This isn't a one and done video on the topic. So how do we use technology? Well, this is one way, right? I'm obviously utilizing it now, creating content, and there's a wide range of what that means, right? Some things may be considered more frivolous than others. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are less worthwhile, right? Frivolity certainly has a place. But that's one. Another one, certainly, that I think is not foolish. Think about medicine, right? Modern technological advantages in surgeries or in detection of illness and treatment of illness, of course. These are ways in which I think we've used technology quite well, or for at least some attempted good. And to do like heavy lifting of something that is broadly important. Then you look at something that's strongly pervasive, like social media, and the attachment that folks have to their phones. And this is where it starts to feel that we've leaned into a very silly lane with our use of technology. We've set up systems through social media where, this is obviously well known, where we are disrupting a lot of different patterns. Our attention spans, our sleep patterns, our sense of dopamine hits and rushes, and our sense of feedback from others, whereby you put something out into the world that is X and you get Y back. That's different. Now that we're so heavily leaning into social media, the way in which that interaction happens on social media is wildly different than how it happens in the real world. And this is where a lot of people spend most of their time and most of their energy, right? Whether that's, it can be fairly, it doesn't have to be like this wicked thing. It doesn't have to be like all of the people who you think just like sitting there arguing all day at their computers. There's certainly plenty of that. There can be people who are doing like relatively innocent things, or scrolling through Instagram and just looking at beautiful photos of nature or of puppies, or whatever it is. But the amount of space that any of this takes up in anyone's particular life is quite burdensome. And there is a lot of the drama, right? Drama at best, and just sheer division and sowing of discontent. I was going to say at its worst, but that's probably not at its worst. That's probably at its median. Now, what if we traded this use of technology for? Well, one thing that we've not done with technology, although we have, like we said, had advancements in medicine, We've seen improvements in other fields, but we've also done this, I'm just going to say, this is my opinion, destructive-ish thing with how pervasive social media is and how it's utilized at this point. What we haven't done is, to start with something, reduced people's boorish and just absolutely unnecessary work weeks. Why the worker in the 1950s would work 40 hours and that was the standard, and why a worker in 2024, and who knows when you're watching this, maybe the same in 2030, let's hope not, but 2030 and beyond, the standard is still work 40 hours. Why? We have endless amounts of machinery, intense robotics, automation, software. We have all of this computing power. All of these things that allow a single person to generate tremendously more productivity than that 1950s worker. And yet, we don't, again, because of our insistence on puritanical thought and Protestant work ethic, we can't get past the idea that in order to make a living and enjoy life and have some sense of self-worth and pride by putting in a good week's work, we can't get past any view of that. With all the modern advancements in technology, we can't get past the view of 40 hours. You got to put in your 40 hours, right? And even then, a lot of people will claim that they're doing 60 or 80 hours. I'm not talking about, the single parent who's trying to provide and is legitimately doing those things. I'm thinking about the million and billionaire entrepreneurs who just proclaim to work that many hours while also putting out 125 social media posts a day. Come on. Who are you fooling? Unfortunately, a lot of people. But maybe we can turn that around. But just think about how stupid a use of technology, social media is, compared to if we could take that away completely. I know we can't, but if we could take that away completely and say, we're not going to do that stupidity with it. We're going to reduce everyone's work week to, 25 hours is going to be the standard. 20 hours is going to be the standard. Because the computing power and the robotics and the automation and the machinery can take care of so much. We don't need to put out another 1.8 million pieces of plastic junk because we can, if we insist that people continue to work 40 hours on site or even remotely, whatever it is, just the human expenditure of 40 hours. To give people that time back. And folks who claim that, family above all and sense of community is super important, connection with others, having the ability to explore things beyond just your very narrow lane in which you find yourself, a lot of those things come with having more time. Being able to get in shape and do things for your health and not, have the pitfalls. Not only do you not have as much time to dedicate to activity and exercise because you're tied to this 40-hour work week, but you're also often situated in such a way you're then further undermining your health because you're sitting there hunched over at a keyboard or staring at a screen that is disrupting all of your sleep pattern and destroying your eyesight. And it's crazy. So we can talk about this more another time, and it's got fairly long, fairly easily. And this is just one component of many, many things. But we might really want to start to consider this tremendously foolish use of technology that we have pedestalized, and the things in which we've just determined, no, you know what, because of my upbringing, because I buy into this idea that I have to suffer to be able to have a roof over my head, you know, I can't bear the idea of only working 20 hours a week and having the other 20 hours back to do whatever I want. Maybe that's doing a different kind of work if you're afraid you'd be so bored. You can pursue something else, but you aren't required to, in a world that doesn't actually have a necessity for it. All right, I'm gonna cross the road. It was getting loud, which is why I paused here. But if you walked with me, good walking. If you just hung out, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next video.